listening to the audio podcast version of The Morning Drive with Brooks Fiesinger.
It's the Morning Drive.
Good morning, and welcome to the Morning Drive. I'm your host, Brooks Fiesinger, brooksfiesinger.com and MillionaireWho.com, where we help you stabilize your wallet, secure your future, and succeed in entrepreneurship and finance. I'm here with my Hyundai Sonata once again. You know, when I originally started doing these videos, I honestly thought that I'd be mixing up the vehicles quite frequently. And I think I did maybe 2 episodes in different cars, and every other one's been in this one, which I guess works. It works well for this. I had tried to toy with some other vehicles, and some of them have quite a bit more road noise. And you don't want to deal with a bunch of road noise in these conversations. Although hopefully someday I can fix that with some better recording equipment, but you get what you get, right? The thing that my daughter used to say when she was in elementary school or kindergarten was, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. And I kind of chuckle about that, but it's actually a pretty good thought, pretty good statement, especially for a kid. So I'm gonna have to say the same thing: you get what you get and you don't throw a fit, right? Anyway, so today's conversation is really about stop dreaming big and acting small. Now, I'm going to disappoint a few people when I say this, because when they hear the idea of stop dreaming big and acting small, their first thought is like, yes, stop dreaming big and acting small. You need to dream big and act big. Go big or go home. And I love the idea of going big and going home. And I urge you to, in some ways, go big and go home. But it's all about context. And I will tell you from my experience, and my experience is expanding every day. One of the things I wasn't expecting to happen, but it's been happening over the last couple of years, really over the last year, more than ever before. I'm getting tons of people contacting me, asking me to invest in their business ideas. And they're saying, hey, Brooks, I'd like to pitch you my business idea. And so I've fielded a number of these pitches, in addition to just my experience as a consultant and my experience working with different businesses and my own personal experiences. And so many people dream big and act big, but they're not big. And I know that sounds bad, because we love this idea, which is just the American idea, like, hey, little Joe Peep who's sitting in her field, who has nothing, can become a trillionaire in like a week. Yeah, this is America. Yeah, I can become a billionaire like that. And you know what? The truth is, I firmly believe anyone can become a billionaire. But you don't become a billionaire like that, And yes, it's quick, but it takes a lot. If you think of some of the people who have become billionaires, and you really think through their stories and read their biographies, you realize, they went from very little to a whole lot relatively quickly. Many of them were able to do it in a matter of, a couple of years. But a couple of years is a long time. It didn't happen overnight, right? The only people that became millionaires that I know overnight were playing the lottery, and the odds are strongly against your favor in going that route. More so than even other business types. And that's kind of one of the kickers that we always forget about sometimes is, how high the failure rates really are in trying businesses. But what I'm really getting at here is, instead of going big, and instead of, acting small, why don't you look for something scalable and growable? And I know so many people who do one of the extremes. I mean, once again, we talk about acting big. That's pretty clear. It's the, hey, give me $1 million and I'll give you $10 million at the end of the year. That's acting big, or going big. Going small is, hey, I'm going to put in a ton of effort for $2 deals and to make $500 a year. And I know a lot of people that do that, and I like multi-level marketing, so I don't want to say that I'm against multi-level marketing, but a lot of people that get into MLM, they sit there and say, hey, guess what? I'm working really hard and I'm making an extra $500 a year. Isn't that great? And I'm sitting there thinking, if you would put that same amount of effort into something else, you could be making a lot more than $500 a year. Especially for some of the ones that are that's a ceiling. There's so many people that get into those things, they end up spending $1,000, they make $1,500, and they're like, hey, I made $1,500. No, you spent $1,000, you made $500. So certainly if it's your passion or whatnot, go for it. I'm not going to tear down people doing that. But that's acting small. And if you're going to put in the effort, you might as well put in the effort to something that can become somewhat big. Why just pigeonhole yourself into a small little few $100? If you can get a business rolling that can actually scale. And that's really the tricky. So, what I wanted to start off today is talking about Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And if you haven't read that story recently, go read it to your kids tonight, go read it to your grandkids tonight, or if you're, don't have kids of your own, maybe you still have this book from when you were young, go check the book out, read it, and think differently about it. And what I want you to think about it is think about it as far as, you're Goldilocks and you're looking for opportunities. And opportunities present themselves. You've got, some that are too big, some that are too small, and some that are just right. You get some that are too hot, some that are too cold, and some that are just right. And, it's really depressing to say it this way, but ideas are a dime a dozen. Your ideas aren't special. I'm sorry to blow, I'm sorry. I know we love ideas. I think ideas are great, but so many people think their ideas are some super magical special thing. And I'll tell you right now, one idea is not a make it or break it. You're going to have more ideas. You're going to have lots more ideas. And just like any other investment where you've got to sit there and say, I know Robert Kiyosaki uses I think it's 110-3, I think is what it is look at 100 properties, put offers in on 10, get them to agree to 3, and then you close on 1. I would even say when it comes to ideas, you might even need to be bigger than that. It might be 300, 101. And that is, you got to come up with 300 ideas, to come up with 100 viable ideas, to come up with, maybe 25 good ideas and 1 that you're actually going to act on. And if you've only thought of a few ideas, you need to practice the idea of ideation. And I really apologize, I'm not going to remember who the author that wrote it, but there's an author that talks about, trying the 10 things a day rule, where you get down a piece of paper and you need to jot down 10 things a day of anything. It's not just write 10 things a day. It's like, hey, today I'm going to think of 10 ways that I could, groom my dog. I'm going to think of 10 ways that I could fill up my car with gas. I could think of 10 new business ideas. I'm going to think of 10 ways I can make a teacher's life better. And if you're only coming up with an occasional few good ideas, this is a great way to get that idea engine rolling. I'll tell you right now, if you want to have a successful company, it's not about having one great idea. It's about having tons of ideas that layer on top of each other. And your first idea, the main business concept might be a great idea, but then you also need great ideas about marketing. You need great ideas about distribution. You need great ideas about pricing. You need great ideas about manufacturing or whatever pieces go into it. You need tons of great ideas. One great idea is not enough to make a successful business, right? We have this fantasy idea that you go get some patent and all of a sudden you sell your patent for $100 million and your life is set. These kind of ideas, tax on us and really make me sad, because that's not how the world works. The vast majority of the patents earn nothing. And even those patents that are successful, the vast majority of them are only successful because the person who invented them was able to market them and make demand for their patent. They treat their patent like a product. And they've got to go get people to want to invest in their product, to buy their product, to use their product. Because if you have a great product and no one knows about it, no one wants to use it, they're not just going to magically say, hey, here's your money for your patent, right? It's a new to the world idea. If it's a new to the world product, no one can use it unless they know how and where to use it. And they're clearly satisfied with the status quo, so you've got to compel them to be using your new idea. So the idea here really is, way too many entrepreneurs hang everything on the one big idea, and so many other entrepreneurs hang everything on acting on some silly small idea, or maybe it's a good small idea, but they act on something small. And what I challenge you to do is, if you're going to take the time to go down an entrepreneurial path, figure out a path that you can start small, succeed small, and grow big, right? That's the real challenge. And I'll tell you right now, you should have no problem coming up with 1,000 business ideas. It might take you a few days, but you should have no problem coming up with 1,000 business ideas. And hundreds of them are going to be small. Hundreds are going to be big, and you might only find a handful of them that really are, those start small, grow big ideas. And those are the ones that tend to be successful. I mean, if you look at a lot of the big companies out there today, if you think about Michael Dell, he started Dell Computers in his dorm room. You can look at Henry Ford, who built his first car at home. You can look at Amazon, you can look at Apple, you can look at Google, HP, Mattel. These are all companies that started out of somebody's garage, or started in their dorm room, or started in their house, right? And these are some of the biggest companies we know today. They weren't necessarily founded with, $1 million and an idea. And many of them did go on to get big time funding. So I don't want to say you don't ever get funding, but you need to be rolling before you're having a funding conversation. I've said this many times before. If you go to a venture capitalist with an idea and you're asking for $1 million, even if they like your idea, you're not keeping any of your business. They're taking it all. You've got to have a business rolling in order to get capital from somebody and keep any of it for yourself. And so realistically, so many of these great businesses have been started small. And, that's what you got to do. I love the story of Mattel. In a nutshell, Mattel was a company that was involved with making frames for pictures. And they built their first dolls out of leftover frame pieces. I mean, how great is that, right? They're literally recycling pieces that don't have other value and turning them into something of value. And they're doing this in their garage, small shop, and that turns into this massive business today. These are how businesses tend to grow. So, I get so many people that come to me and they literally tell me, hey, if you can give me $1 million, I can, make all this money for you. And I can just tell you that if you come asking for $1 million to me, or if you want $1 million, there's better people to go to than me. Don't go to me for $1 million. Anyway, but if you're looking for $1 million, I can guarantee you most venture capitalists, most angel investors have no interest in talking to you unless you're already well down the path of having, some market penetration or some contracts or something like that. And when you want to, aim really big and you want to go really big, you're going to count on getting venture capital or angel funding. Now, I've gone over this before, but angel funding is pretty much somebody who really likes you or likes your idea and is willing to take a massive amount of risk to give you some money to get your business rolling. That's what many of you actually rely on. People like to think of venture capital or VC funding. Those tend to come from companies and groups who work together to generate pools of cash to invest in high-risk startup businesses. But VCs typically only invest in businesses that are actually rolling, so businesses that are generating business, but could use additional capital to grow a lot more quickly. And so once again, if you get in that stage, say for example you start small and you've got a business where you sit there and say, hey, if I had another $10 million from VC, I could become a $200 million company instead of the $1 million company I am today. There's something to be said there. That's a great conversation to have. But we're focusing on people who are starting off at the beginning. And once again, most people I know never get rolling because they either try small, act small, or they dream big. And once again, just telling you not to dream big makes you want to cry a little bit inside, because the idea of dreaming big is great. And while I want you to dream big, you need to filter that big dream into something that you can and should actually be doing. And that's where things get a little more tricky. And, once again, most people are going to tell you just run with that big idea. And I'll often tell you, just do it. And I want you to just do it. But take the time to do it right and figure out what the heck you're actually doing. And does it make sense? Is it the right size business? And, I had a guy recently who keeps sending me messages about, well, what about this idea? What about this idea? First of all, that's really annoying. Second of all, what about your idea? Why would I give you money to do your idea? Give me a reason. And the answer is always because you can become rich. I can become rich easily. So many people have ideas that are right size. Why would I waste my time and money with an idea that's big size? Too big. And I don't mean big potential. I love big potential. If you sit there and say, hey, I'm starting my business with $1,000 and there's a potential to be a $10 billion company, yes, do it. Great. That's the kind of business I like to hear about. Start your business for $1,000 and turn it into a $10 billion company. That's awesome, right? That's awesome. Maybe you need $10,000. Maybe you need $5,000. Awesome. No concerns about those. But if you're sitting there saying, hey, I need $1 billion so I can turn out $1 trillion, now you got a problem. One of the biggest examples of this is Elon Musk in Tesla. And you know what? Honestly, Tesla, I'm amazed. Everybody's amazed at how far Tesla's gotten. Most people didn't expect them to be able to get this big, to grow this well. But hey, newsflash, they still don't make money. It's 2018. They still don't make money. And I know Elon's working so hard right now to turn it into a profitable company, and he should be, because they need to become a profitable company. But do you really want to go into massive debt and all that risk? Because maybe in 20 years you might make a profit. Life's too important and risk is too expensive to invest 20 or 30 years of your life and destroy it under the prayer that you might just maybe get lucky and maybe have a successful business. That's silly. And I grew up this way, and the reason I'm passionate about this is because this is exactly what I was told in school to do. I was told in school, come up with some big idea, some huge idea, and then go pitch it to your venture capitalist and get their $10 million and then go rule the world. That's exciting, isn't it? Don't you want to rule the world? You want to be the next Tesla, you want to be the next GM, you want to be the next Dell, you want to be the next Microsoft. But newsflash, go research the actual companies you want to idolize. How did they get rolling? I can't even think of the company anymore, but when I was in school, everyone was so excited because, this company got $400 million in angel venture capital to get started. I don't remember the company name. Do you know I don't remember the company name? Because they got $400 million and they don't exist anymore. Everyone thought it was the world's best idea, and you know what happened to that world's best idea? Who knows? $400 million. Poof. And while maybe if you're a billionaire, it's not a big deal to invest $1 million here or there in businesses when you own a high percentage of it. But you realize that if you're not the billionaire, then you're losing. You're getting a tiny little piece and taking on all the risk. Why do you want to take on all the risk for a tiny bit of piece? Do you realize how easy it is to make money in the world that we live in today? This is the depressing thing about it. And I wish I would have known this when I was like 18, right? It is super easy to become rich. Yeah, it is. It's not that hard. It's not that hard to be successful. It's not that hard to learn how to deal with money. It's not that hard to build a business. It really isn't that hard. And the problem is, I always made it too difficult, and I'm sure you make it too difficult. Too many people make it too difficult. And once again, they're trying to build a $1 billion business instead of building a $1,000 business. And if you have $100, build a $100 business. If you have $1,000, build a $1,000 business. If you can't think of one, then work on ideation. Work on practicing. Figure out your $100, $1,000 business and stop wasting your time on $1 billion businesses, right? Once you get your, when you're trying to think of what $100 business you want to start, sure, start the one that has the potential to be $1 billion business, but you don't need to start a $1 billion business. You don't want to be living at your parents' house at the age of 30, frustrated that you haven't made it big yet because you were so eager to make $1 billion that you failed to make your million. And the frustrating thing is once you get rolling, you realize how easy it is. And you know, if you made a little plan, and you said, look, you know, I want to make $1 million a year. That's a lot of money, by the way. You know, $1 million a year. It's a lot better than making $1 million one time. Let's say you want to make $1 million a year. That'd be pretty rich. I think most of us would agree $1 million a year. You know, you don't need $1 million tomorrow. What do you need next year to create the path to $1 million a year in, say, 30 years, right? Draw yourself a nice little curve, a nice little semi-exponential curve, and you're going to realize it's like, hey, I need to make $250 a month this year. $250 a month? That's reasonable. Okay, next year, I've got to do $500 a month. Okay, that's realistic. And maybe the idea of getting $1,000, $2,000, $10,000 a month isn't realistic right now, but that's because you don't have the $250 a month. So if you want to get to $1 million, start at $250. And once again, I'm re-echoing some of the things I was talking about just last week, but that's because it's so important. And I'm facing it right now. I've been working with some students this week. I've been working with some, you know, young professionals who dream of having their own business, and they are frustrated and they're overwhelmed and they are, you know, throwing away the medium ideas because they're putting all their eggs in the big ideas. And while I love the idea of dreaming big, right? The idea is wonderful. It's so easy to become successful focusing on things that are doable that I don't understand why you'd lose sleep focusing on high risk. Now, what I personally do, and I've done a long time, is I have several piggy banks or several risk pools. And I love this idea, right? I have a risk pool of very low risk, and that's where I put money into things like my 401k, my IRAs, my HSAs. That's my low risk money, right? It's getting very low return, but the idea is the risk is very, very low. There's some, but it's very low. Then I have my average risk pool, and that is, you know, the money that you'll do for things that are medium risk. And then I have a small little pool that I call my high risk pool. And my high risk pool is essentially the stuff that I'll go do the crazy things with. And I think this is a great way to do it, is to have your high risk pool. You know, that's your, you know, you want to go do your $1 billion idea, go play with your high risk pool. Because you're still going to become a millionaire using your other two pools. So this is just becoming a, you know, it's like almost playing the lottery. You got a little bit of money to potentially make it huge if you happen to strike risk, but it's high risk. You're probably not going to, and that's the part you need to accept, is that when you go for these, you know, go really big, you're probably going to fail. So are you planning for failure? That's the kicker. Are you planning for failure? I'll tell you right now, my low risk money is planning for complete and utter destruction of failure. It is me landing flat on my face over and over again and unable to make a decent life. And if I am unable to have any success in business and entrepreneurship, I'll tell you right now, I already have enough in there to retire and my life will be fine, right? So then my medium risk pool is like, okay, well, this is assuming that things go, you know, sometimes good, sometimes bad. It's stuff that, hey, I'm not going to go for the high risk ventures, but I will take a little bit of risk with, you know, more of the day-to-day risks, and it'll be worthwhile, right? Then I get to the third level, which is that high risk pool, and that is the, if I lose all this, it doesn't matter, right? I've got my life plan going on with my other two pools. I got my security blanket with my low risk. I've got my life plan with my normal one. And here's one that I deal with to take some of those high risks. And I'm going to go jump into that $1 billion venture. And I'm going to go jump in that thing that's got a 2% chance of success. And I'm going to go attack that thing that has a window of opportunity of like 3 days. You know, there's a place for that. And it's all about risk, you know, and that's the kicker, is that, you know, those can succeed, but they succeed so rarely that it hurts me to see people put all their eggs in that basket and then end up broke and depressed and living in their parents' basement. And I see that a lot. I see more people living in their parents' basement who are broke and depressed at the age of 30 because they went big than I see people who made it big. Okay? And that's just, we gotta be honest with that. So I want you to be honest with that. I don't want you living in your parents' basement at the age of 30 depressed. It's that simple. I don't want you depressed in your parents' basement. So I would rather have you attack a plan that is more realistic and guaranteed to see success. And then with some of that money you earn from that path of realism, then you have a little bit of cash there that you can do the high risk ventures. And my high risk venture fund isn't in the billions. It's not even in the millions. But, it starts to get big enough because I put a portion of all my income into that pool. And so that high risk money gets big enough that I can take some of those stabs. And you know what? I'll tell you right now, all my stabs have failed. Some of them have been a lot of fun and kind of worth failing. And that's the other thing, I've always liked the idea of make sure you at least get something. So if you're going to fail with something fun. But I can afford to lose it all because that's my high risk fund. That money's literally set aside for high risk. But you don't want to count on high risk. There's a reason why nobody's going to give you a loan to play the lottery, because your odds of winning the lottery are so tiny, it's not a good investment. I'll tell you the same thing about dreaming too big, right? You putting all your eggs in the idea of making a new car manufacturer when you have no car experience, you're 22 years old, and you don't have any income, fine, you got a great dream, but be prepared to lose everything and be living in your parents' basement at the age of 30. I don't want you living in your parents' basement at the age of 30. I also don't want you moving back in with your parents when you're 60, right? And I know that sounds silly, but I know there's a number of listeners on here that are over the age of 50. Great. But I also see people who are over the age of 50, 60, who sit there and say, hey, okay, I've got my, emergency retirement savings. I'm going to go invest my retirement savings in the super high risk venture. If you want to go invest your retirement savings into real estate, or you want to go invest your retirement savings into a realistic business, awesome. I think that's a great idea. I think it's great to diversify beyond just stocks and bonds and whatever else you've got, mutual funds, And in fact, I'm not even a huge fan of stocks and bonds and mutual funds. I know I had people on here a few days ago that were big into those investments. You can definitely make a lot of money in those investments. There's nothing wrong with those investments. They're very popular. But there's a lot of other investments you can do. There's no reason why you should choose something like that instead of some of the other ones that are viable, because there's other viable business or investment mechanisms such as businesses. So I'm all for you going and investing that when you're 55, 60 years old, but be careful of investing this super high risk. Make sure you are prepared to lose every penny, and that it doesn't derail your life, and it doesn't set back your retirement plans, and it doesn't cause you to be 60 years old and living in your parents' basement. And this is the depressing point, is that we tend to choose to talk about the amazing things that happen. We talk about the 50 college dropouts that became multimillionaires, but we forget the fact that there's millions of college dropouts that earn nothing. We like to focus on the success stories, but you only have one life, and your life isn't going to be renewed if you didn't make it big. You're not going to get your second try necessarily. And so, to some level, it's great to dream big. It's great to have big ideas, and it's great to push for it. But you can't do that at the expense of your own life and your own success. And you can't put all your eggs in that ultra high risk basket, or you're really going to be miserable. And I see more people miserable than people who make it big. And that's really what I wanted to talk about is, dreaming big is great. Keep on dreaming big. Acting small is the start, fine. But think through the process and think through finding those right ideas. Spend the time to get more creative, to write down ideas, to think of new ideas, and come up with those great ideas so that you can ultimately find the ideas that can start small but grow big. So you have that excitement, you have that potential of where it can go, but you can make money small to keep it afloat, to keep it rolling, to keep yourself sustained, to keep yourself in good. Again, that way you Don't end up in your parents' basement at the age of 30 or 60, which are both bad things. That's really what I want to talk about today. And again, you're going to find out that there are some high-risk opportunities that are very cheap. Maybe, for example, you can invest a little bit of time and just a little bit of side money into those high-risk ventures. I love that because, once again, maybe the odds of succeeding are low, but your odds of it destroying your life are low. But what I hate to see is I know people who are in their 20s who got over $100,000 in debt, credit card debt or loans from people to start this big business. And when they, even though they might have gotten the product built, they then didn't have the money to do marketing, or the product wasn't right, or it was too late. And it takes the rest of your life to dig out of that $100,000 hole. And that's really depressing. The thought that, instead of living the best years of your life, you're trying to dig out of a hole for the rest of your life isn't the way I want you to live. It's not the way I want you to live, right? I want you to be successful. I want you to be big. I want you to do amazing things. I want the most amazing things to happen in your life, but I want them to happen to you without you running a massive risk of hurting your life. And that's what we're talking about today. So once again, be Goldilocks and the three bears, and I want you to walk in there and I want you to say, hey, you know what? This one's just too big. I can't eat it all. And the odds of me finishing it are slim. This one's too small. Yes, I can eat it, but is it worth it? It's not even going to fill me enough to get through the day. Oh, this one is just right. And focus on that one that is just right. Because the just right ones, you can come up with an idea that's just right. And if you haven't thought of one, keep thinking, because you can come up with an idea of just right. You will have more ideas. You don't have to jump on the first idea that comes to your head. You don't have to jump on the one idea that you think is $1 trillion idea. Focus on the ones that you can realistically focus on. And keep the other ones, put them in the back burner. I have a book that I write down my great ideas, and I say, hey, if I've ever got extra cash, $10 million of extra cash, I'll do this one. If I've got $50 million of extra cash, I'll do this one. Do that. Because your life, even if you're 60 years old, you got plenty of life left. There's a good chance that you can start ramping one of these up and you'll have that excess cash to go in those high-risk things. So don't give up on those dreams, but focus on what's realistic right now and do what's more likely to be successful and weigh that risk and reward, because there's a real great sweet spot in the middle there where you take a small amount of risk, but there's still a very sufficient reward. Because while we all love the idea of becoming these billionaires, frankly, having $100 million is pretty nice. And oddly, having $100 million makes it a lot easier to become a billionaire. Having $10 million is makes it easier to have $100 million. Having $1 million makes it a lot easier to become $10 million. And having even $100,000 makes it easier to get to $1 million. So again, you don't have to go for the billion. First go for the 250, then go for the 500, then go for the 1,000, then go 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, million, 10 million, 100 million, billion, right? You getting this? This is once again starting to rehash what we talked about before, but that's because all these ideas come together. They don't live in a vacuum. That's the cool thing about the world. These ideas all interplay with each other. They all work together. All right? So once again, learn from Goldilocks. Go find the right opportunity. So go out there, make the impossible happen.
Learn more at MillionaireWho.com.
It's the morning drive.
Hello? Why is this not working? Good morning, and welcome to the This is lagging.